Welcome to episode 2 of the Cookie Chronicles. Last time, we nailed the flavours, but something wasn't quite right. Our cookies were spreading, way more than they did when we baked them at home. So today, we're on a mission to find out why and how to fix it. First up, we tested some smaller cookie sizes. Why? Because we're planning to sell some cute individual cookies, and this was the perfect excuse to experiment. Excuse the munching in the background, we couldn't stop snacking whilst we were watching the oven. As you can see, the cookies spread super thin. They were almost invisible on camera. Then they started bubbling around the edges, and that is not what you want from a cookie. When the edges burn and the middle stays raw, yeah, that's a no from us. So, that theory, out the window. Time for the next test. In our next batch, we tried something different. We refrigerated the butter for longer. That's why the dough looks a lot paler, but trust us, that's actually a good thing. We also went back to our original cookie size, the half pounders. That's 227 grams for the UK folks. Honestly, anyone walking past must have thought we were loony, just staring into the oven like it was a crystal ball. But then, these spread too. So it wasn't the size and it wasn't the butter. We had one more thing left to try. We were truly stumped. There was one thing we had done differently from our home setup, but surely it couldn't be that, right? We'd switched to silicone baking mats to be more sustainable and avoid tearing through rolls of baking paper. But to our surprise, and after a bit of late night Googling, we found something wild. Silicone mats actually change the way heat is conducted through the dough, and that can cause the cookies to spread more than they would usually on baking paper. Who would have known? So, that evening we popped off to the shop to grab some baking paper to finally test our theory. To be honest, this felt like our last hope. We were up at 5:40 the next day, bleary-eyed but ready. We headed straight to the unit. Here was the plan. At this point, we were unsure about everything. So we took some batter and decided to bake some cookies one by one. We were going to test different temperatures, weights, and baking times until we had cracked it. Alright, let's dive into our first test. We decided to shape the dough into a taller form rather than the usual round shape. We then baked them at 220 degrees Celsius for initially 12 minutes. We were optimistic as the cookie seemed to hold its shape and wasn't spreading too much. However, we soon noticed the edges had spread too quickly, leading to cracking and burning. When we took the cookies out of the oven, the middle was still raw. So, it turns out the taller shape wasn't the best approach, but maybe we needed to adjust the temperature and the cooking times. Next, we tried the same shape and weight, but this time at 200 degrees for 15 minutes. We thought perhaps the oven at home wasn't as hot as the one in the bakery, so this might turn out to be the winning method. We observed less spreading, less cracking, and less burning at the edges. However, it became clear that the tall shape was still causing the middle to remain undercooked. This meant we had to bake it for longer, which resulted in the edges becoming too crisp once again. Next, we decided to tweak the weight of all of our cookies whilst still having the tall shape of the dough when putting them in the oven, hoping it would finally cook all the way through. Plus, let's be honest, we were craving a post lunch snack. This experiment quickly earned the nickname the Leaning Tower of Cookie. Spoiler alert, the tall shape wasn't the answer. Now, for this absolute beast, we went back to our half pounder weight using the usual shape, temperature, and time we did at home, but this time we swapped out the silicone mat for some baking paper. Honestly, we couldn't believe this would make a difference after all of our previous tests, but this was our last hope. And what a relief to see this cookie bake the way it did. Baking paper was, after all that, the solution to our problems, and now we had the recipe nailed. From disaster to delicious, we finally recreated the cookie we love to bake at home. And here it is, the final result. These scrumptious cookies will be available for sale starting the 5th of July on our Shopify store. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe or follow for more delicious cookie content.